As we hit the halfway mark of the year, I thought it would be cool to look back at the UFC hype trains that got derailed this year. And I wanted to break down each one and give my opinion about it, if they really got exposed or it was just a temporary setback. So anyways, we're gonna start the list with Johnny Walker. Now hear me out. I want to put him on the list because this dude had a lot of momentum of the beginning of the year, and I understand he's not a newbie. Johnny had some momentum at the time, man. People generally believed that he would beat Magomed Ankalaev back at January. Even I believed it at one point, which seems crazy now, considering how their first fight ended in a no contest. The fight was actually very close. And if you ask me, it looked like Johnny was winning from what we saw. And let's not forget that Johnny was also on a 3-fight win streak at the time. He defeated Anthony Smith, Paul Craig, and Cutelaba. In hindsight, many of us were coping. I don't know what made us think that Johnny Walker was going to go out there and outstrike Magomed Ankalaev. Looking back, the win streak that Johnny was in wasn't really anything too special. And when he finally faced a top tier light heavyweight, he does what he always does, and that was getting knocked out in a goofy manner. I won't lie, for a split second, I thought we were going to see Johnny Walker rise to the top, but obviously that's never happening. I want to say that Johnny was exposed, but he's always been exposed. He's always known for having poor defense, and it became more clear once he got knocked out by Ankalaev, and then afterwards Volkov. It's actually crazy that people actually thought, including myself, actually thought at one point he was going to be the guy to beat John Jones. What a goofy idea. Hopefully he does well in the heavyweight division though. Now, the next fighter we have on the list is none other than Mike Malott. Oof, man. Talk about a derail, man. This dude at one point had a good amount of momentum. The dude was on a 6-fight win streak, 4 fights in the UFC that were all first and second round finishes. And everyone, including myself, thought he would run through Neil Magny, especially since he's a gatekeeper. And to be honest, it kind of seemed like it was going that direction. I mean, Mike dominated Neil for all 3 rounds. But somehow, in the 3rd round, Neil Magny overpowered Mike, and I guess Mike gassed out too, and he tried to do submission attempts, and he just got overpowered and ground and pound. And I'm not gonna lie, when Mike got TKO'd, my jaw was dropped. I was like, are you serious, bro? You literally got overpowered and now grappled by Neil, the gatekeeper Magny? Mind you, this guy was always losing to ranked fighters, you know, the main characters of the UFC. This is like Neil Magny's job, to lose to those guys. And there's no way to sugarcoat it, guys. That dude was fraud checked. I just don't think he'll ever be in the top 10. Maybe a top 15, but he'll never be a top 10 fighter, bro. I'm just convinced that Mike will never become anything special, especially since Magny outgrappled you and finished you. That says a lot about you, Mike. So yeah, Mike definitely got exposed, and if I'm not mistaken, all the Canadians lost on that night of UFC 297, so it's so disappointing, man. I thought you guys were gonna have the next big Canadian star. Now, the next person we have in the list is none other than Joe Pyfer. Now, for people who don't know who this guy is, apparently they were saying that this guy hits harder than Francis Ngannou. He was on a 5-fight win streak, and he had a bunch of finishes in the 1st round. And he seemed very well rounded from what we saw, and to put the cherry on top, this dude was always salty, man. So he was the perfect package for the UFC, and a lot of people expected big things from him, which is still possible to this day. But at the time when he fought Jack Hermanson, people expected him to run through this guy. And boy, did Joe get messed up in this fight. I mean, don't get me wrong, Pyfer was having a lot of success in the beginning of the fight, but Jack showed him what's up since he's a veteran and he had all that experience, and he took him to the deep waters, where he outstriked Pyfer and outgrappled him. And Pyfer crumbled, man. He crumbled bad in this fight, man. Mentally crumbled and even forgot the basics of striking in the fight. He was looking all sloppy near the end. Now, I wouldn't say that Pyfer got fraud checked in this fight. I think he got humbled. And that's what he needed, because he normally comes in with a crazy pace. He normally thinks he's going to knock out all these guys in the 1st or 2nd round. And it's not always going to be like that. Some people can survive his power. It isn't that crazy. It ain't no Francis Ngannou power, son. And he recently just got a win. So hopefully we see a new Joe Pyfer going forward. Moving on, the next fighter we have on the list is none other than Benoit Saint Denis. The dude was on a 5-fight win streak, and all those fights were bangers, so he had a lot of momentum, especially since his nickname was the God of War. Anyways, he got fast-tracked to fight Dustin Poirier for the co-main event at UFC 299, and as we all know, it went kind of back and forth until Dustin ultimately knocked him out. And this is one weird case because Benoit had staph infection, and I know a lot of people are coping right now saying that that's why he lost, and I'm like, nah, that's not why he lost. First of all, Dustin is just too good. I mean, the dude attempted 3 guillotine attempts, arguably putting himself in a worse position, and every time he was able to get back up and eventually beat him. I mean, you can kind of tell that he wasn't taking this fight as serious. I mean, he tried 3 guillotine attempts and he didn't even try to do one on Islam. So yeah, that says a lot. Dustin was arguably outstriking him on the feet. I mean, it's pretty obvious that Benoit's defense is ass, and I think it got kind of exposed in this fight with Dustin, and I want to say he got fraud checked. But I don't know if I can say that because he's fighting a fighter like Dustin. Dustin is good, man. I think Benoit is going to be a top 5 to maybe top 8 fighter in his weight class, but we can always guarantee a barn burner from the guy. But I do think he has potential at best. The dude can always get better. It's never really too late. Not like that fight with Dustin was one-sided. So do I think he was fraud checked? Nah, not really, but I swear if he loses to Maikano, then we might have to reconsider it. But in the meantime, I would still say that he's a legit contender. Another fighter we have on the list is none other than Roelis Despaigne. He was a fighter that had a lot of hype in the MMA community, as people were hyping him up as the next Francis Ngannou. I mean, the dude was freaking massive, man. I think he had the biggest reach in the UFC history, if I wasn't mistaken. And he has a silver medal in Taekwondo. And the dude has shown that he has knockout power. I mean, this dude was able to knock out people in less than a minute. So that was saying something. That's why he gained so much hype. Until he got exposed by a guy named Waldo Cortez, because Waldo exposed Roelis by out-grappling him, and it confirmed that Roelis was too high on his power and ultimately got humbled once he fought somebody who had decent grappling. Now the dude is 35, maybe he can improve. I mean, he can probably be ranked, maybe. I say this because there's a lot of blobs in the weight class, but I don't know. He looked like he never grappled in his life, and honestly, that performance was awful. So I would say that the dude got fraud checked, but who knows. Up next, we have Vitor Petrino. And man, does this one piss me off. The dude was on a 4-fight win streak, and he showed that he had amazing power, and he was going against Anthony Smith. And in this fight, he was tagging Smith occasionally, but for some reason, he decided to shoot for a takedown and try to pick him up and slam him, even though Smith has really good jiu-jitsu. And it boggles my mind, because why would you do that? I just don't get it. It just didn't make any sense. Like I mentioned, Smith has really good jiu-jitsu. You practically gave him your neck for free, which still annoys me to this day. And I just don't get it. Why would you pick him up and try to slam him? Do you realize how dumb that is? So anyways, the guy has very dumb fight IQ. So yeah, he got fraud checked by Anthony Smith. Practically gave Smith the win. But yeah, I believe this guy is a one-trick pony, because I believe Smith was landing more significant strikes, but Vitor had that one-punch power that can change the entire dynamic of the fight, and Smith doesn't have any knockout power. So up next, we have Ikram Alaskarov. This guy had some hype because the only person he ever lost to was Hamzat, and after that loss, he was taking out everyone. He actually gained some momentum, but as we all know, Hamzat pulled out of his fight with Robert Whittaker, so Ikram stepped in and he got obliterated in the first round. Now, did Ikram get exposed? It's kind of hard to say because he was thrown in there in short notice. And look, I'm aware that he had a training camp for someone else with a completely different style. Then he got thrown in with Robert and got destroyed. Robert's a huge step up, bro. I mean, this is the same guy that people say he's one of the greatest middleweights of all time. So I can't really say that Ikram got fraud checked. Obviously, he believed in his abilities. That's why he took this fight. But you need a training camp to even compete with Whittaker's style. So yeah, obviously he believed in his abilities, but he wasn't able to train for Whittaker's style. So yeah, that just happened. I don't think this is the end of Ikram. I believe he'll come back and be a top 10 or a top 5 fighter eventually. He'll probably never win the belt, but he'll be a good addition to the middleweight division overall. But anyways, guys, those are the hype trains that got derailed this year. Obviously, some of them still have momentum, and they're going to probably come back to the weight class and do some damage. And it was more of like a lesson learned for those guys. But some of those fighters, they got fraud checked, okay? And this is only the half the year so far, so I guess we're gonna find out in this next half who else is gonna get fraud checked. But besides that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This one was actually pretty fun to make, and if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like always, guys, I'll see you on my next one.